The meeting is now live.
Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation. This is the first Traffic and Transportation decision meeting with members physically present since March 2020. Please be assured that we have put appropriate cleansing and social distancing measures in place to ensure that this meeting is undertaken in a COVID-secure manner. Limited public seating has been made available, and this has been allocated in such a way that all present are aware of the COVID-secure protocols in place. This meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they so wish. Please be advised that the public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. Can I ask members to remain seated throughout the duration of the meeting? Can I please ask members to remain seated throughout the duration? I think it's a repetition of the meeting, and to wear a face mask and covering unless they're seated. Sorry about that. That's a double thing. Housekeeping. Some safety information. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at Queen Victoria's statue in front of the civic offices. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. May I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed. Everyone speaking will be on camera. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. Right, can everybody now introduce themselves? Can we start with you, Councillor Bosher, please?
Councillor Simon Bosher, I'm the Conservative spokesman for Traffic and Transportation.
Councillor Heaney?
I'm Councillor Graham Heaney. I'm the Labour spokesman for Traffic and Transportation.
Councillor Peter Harris.
And Councillor Scott Peter Harris, Vice Chair of Licensing.
Kevin McKee.
Kevin McKee, I'm the Parking Manager for Portsmouth City Council.
Pam Turton.
Thanks, Councillor Stagg. I'm Pam Turton. I'm the Assistant Director for Transport at Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you. Michelle Love.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Love. I'm the Safer Travel Manager at Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you. And Wayne Leighton.
Hi, I'm Wayne Leighton. I'm a Finance Manager here at Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you, everybody. We don't have any apologies for any absence, do we?
There's no apologies for absence.
Thank you. So we'll start with item number 2, which is declarations of members' interests. Councillor Bosher, none?
No interest, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney?
No interest to declare.
Thank you. We'll go on to item number 3, which is proposed amendments to taxi ranks Albert Road. And I believe, is it you, Kevin, who's going to present it? Thank you.
Yes, it is, Councillor Stagg. Yeah, good afternoon. The proposal presented in this report is from TRO 31 2021, and it is to amend the taxi rank on Albert Road outside the King's Theatre to a taxi rank that allows taxis 24 hours a day. The rank is currently allows for limited waiting for up to 2 hours between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and then becomes a taxi stand between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. The problem occurs with vehicles parking in the stand when it is reserved for taxis. This can lead to taxis encroaching on the bus stops, and then buses find it difficult to stop safely. The proposal is to make the taxi rank permanent, 24 hours a day, to remove any confusion that the mixed route restriction causes. There was one objection to the proposal, which is detailed in Appendix B of the report. The objector lives in Albert Grove and considers the proposal will lead to more vehicles using Albert Grove as a cut-through to avoid the Albert Grove Victoria Road South Junction and Elm Grove lights. The objector is also concerned that it will lead to more taxis turning in the entrance to the road. The officer's view is that we think any additional traffic will be light, and the advantage of the change outweighs any of the negative effects mentioned by the objector, and therefore propose the recommendation made in 2.1 of the report to make the taxi rank 24 hours. The second recommendation is that it's noted that the other proposals in TRO 31 have been enacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anna, do we have to read out the written objection, or is it covered by Kevin reading it? Lovely, thank you. Councillor Peter Harris, I think you have a deputation. Yes?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stagg. It's very much I'm very much for the rank to be 24 hours. I think it's a pinch point for taxi drivers. They get quite upset when they see that the rank isn't 24 hours, and during those times it has been in operation. Quite often there are cars parked in that area, and I think there are a large element of tickets being delivered to those drivers. It's just something that I want to know, actually, because the rank will be changing to a 24-hour rank. I think it might be a good idea for Kevin and his team to police that for a good couple of months to ensure that people are applying by the new rules. But I think this will be welcomed by the taxi trade, because the taxi trade are they can be a patient bunch when they want to be on stuff like this, but I think with ranks they've been patient for the last 2 years, and this is one that they've really pinpointed, especially as the city gets moving again. I think it's fundamentally important that this rank is one that is 24 hours, because I think it's a very, very important part of the city economically. So it has my full support, and I know the Licensing Committee has already supported it, and we look forward to doing some more work with the traffic and transportation portfolio and helping you guys wherever we can. So thank you, Councillor Stagg, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris. Kevin, can you reassure Councillor Peter Harris that it will be enforced? Yes.
So normally with new restrictions we do go there quite a lot initially to as you say, to make the point, and we'll make sure that it's done in this case.
It's more so to preempt any discussion from the drivers that there's no enforcement. So we've had the discussion now. I think that the drivers would be reassured moving forward, and it's great to hear.
Hopefully the change will remove any confusion that people can park there, because the sign in the report, it shows a P and people just read that and think they can park. So we will.
Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Heaney, do you have any comments?
No, I support the proposal. It's in my ward, so obviously I'm aware of the issue, and I'm aware that people do park there in the evenings and do cause problems for taxis. And also because the theatre sometimes operates obviously outside of evening hours and has matinee performances, and actually people will arrive by taxi may well, and if they can't park there because other vehicles are parking, it does cause a problem where taxis can't actually pull up. So I have no problems with this proposal. I'm more than happy to see it supported.
And I think disabled people particularly will come in taxis, so yes. Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stagg. Yes, I'm not going to dissent. We've got a nice bit of cross-party consensus going on here at the first meeting back. I fully support it. I do have one question which I don't think Kevin could probably answer, but I'll ask it anyway. One of the issues, particularly around the King's Theatre rank, with vehicles parking in it, was the fact that we'd send down CEOs, they'd happily put tickets on those vehicles that were stuck in the middle of it, but there was no incentive for those vehicles to move. If they were there going to the King's Theatre or to one of the restaurants or whatever, they would just leave their car in there and take it. Part of the issue, certainly from the taxi trade when I was Cabinet Member and going forward, was what do we do about vehicles that just leave their cars there? Because the only solution to that, I guess, is to remove those vehicles, which I don't think we currently have the capability of doing. Is that something that can be explored going forward? Because it's not going to change much, changing the timing, if vehicles, private vehicles still park in the taxi rank and incur a ticket, but choose just to leave their vehicle there because they're out for a meal. You will still get the chaotic situation that you've got outside the King's Theatre. Are there plans to go a step forward with vehicle removal going forward?
I think you've got a good point there. Kevin, have you got an answer to that? An easy one?
Not that easy, but we do have a limited capability to remove vehicles, particularly those causing an obstruction, rather. But it is quite a difficult process. But we're hoping that by changing the restriction, we'll remove the thought that people can park in the taxi rank, because currently the sign that's featured in the report has a big P on it, and people just see that dominant P. I don't think it's going to solve it altogether, but we're hoping that it'll improve the situation. If that doesn't work, we can certainly look at other measures. Yes.
I'm just going to ask, are you putting up notices, be aware this is going to change? I mean, if we pass this, So that there's early warnings that people who regularly, because very often if you go and park in a place, you don't stop and think and look what's around you. You might just automatically go there.
In terms of signing, we're restricted by what the DFT will allow us to put up in terms of regulatory signs, but we'll try and think of a way of getting that message across.
Thank you. Councillor Bersher.
Yes, thank you very much, Lynn. At the risk of creating more work, because I think there is potentially going to be an issue with vehicles just parked there, and clearly changing the signage, making it 24 hours, needs a bit of bedding in to see how it goes. And I'm sure Councillor Peter Harris, as Vice Chairman of Licensing, would also be interested. Could we revisit this? And I'm not talking about changing decision, but perhaps have some sort of noting report in maybe 6 months' time to give a view of how this has actually worked and whether there is still an issue there, because I'm sure the Licensing Committee will be interested in that, and I'm sure Viv Young will no doubt let us know as he chooses to do so whether there is an issue, but it will be nice to have an idea if we're going to monitor it, if we can have some sort of noting report to say there is a problem then there, or the problem's gone, or something like that, so that we're moving forward. And maybe that report also feeds into the Licensing Committee, who obviously have a vested interest as well.
Yeah.
Is that possible, Kevin? I'm sure it is, but...
Yeah, we can. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Just a quick question. I mean, I see the point Simon's making. It is a difficult one to deal with, but I think, we're going to have to try and do the best we can with it. Occasionally you see vehicles with multiple tickets. I don't know what the rules are around giving a car more than one ticket if it's been waiting, whether you have to wait 24 hours or whatever. I don't know what the rules are about that, whether that might be an option, but maybe not if it has to be 24 hours, because obviously that wouldn't work.
Kevin, have you got an answer to that?
Yeah, the cars that we do monitor cars that get more than one ticket to see whether they're abandoned, and if they're abandoned, we have an abandoned vehicle process, so we can look to remove them as abandoned vehicles, but we wouldn't normally remove a vehicle that was parked in a parking place for a short period of time.
A slight misunderstanding. I was asking whether you can give a multiple tickets, because what is the timescale for giving a multiple tickets to a vehicle that's...
My apologies, Councillor Heaney. Yeah, you're right, it's 24 hours.
Thank you, Kevin. Are you happy with that, Councillor Peter Harris, that we report getting reports back after, I don't know, how long, 3 to 6 months, something like that?
I think to see the reasonable objective of if it's actually worked, I think 6 months would be a sensible time, just because I think with the opening up of the economy, I think we would get a better idea of what is actually happening out there. And I think not just for the Albert Road rank, but I think for the other ranks that we've recently changed, I think the Licensing Committee would like to review them all, if that is possible.
Well, we can discuss that at another time, but yes, it's a sensible idea. Any more questions or comments? Okay. Then I'm very happy to accept the recommendations that the combined part-time taxi and limited waiting provision located outside the King's Theatre and Albert Road, Southsea, is converted to a 24-hour taxi rank as proposed under TRO 31/2021, and it is noted that the remainder of TR 31/2021 has been brought into operation under TRO 31A 2021 on the 27th of April 2021 due to no objections being received to those proposals. So thank you for that. Councillor Peter Harris, do you want to leave now?
Not just yet,
Oh, I
Councillor
thought you
Stagg.
said...
I'm probably going to sit around because I've got some emails to catch up on and I'm quite comfortable here.
Okay, I thought you said you wanted to go after you'd finished deputation. No, you're welcome to stay.
Sorry, I haven't sat in my chair for a long time and I'm quite enjoying it.
Right, so we go on now to item 4. I find it. Which is TRO 30/2021 proposed RPZ amendments. Is this you again, Kevin?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. There are two proposals covered by this report. The first one is a proposal to introduce 3-hour limited waiting in Bramshot Road, which received an objection, so we're recommending it doesn't go ahead. The proposal originated from a concern by a local business that the ME parking restrictions, which apply 4:30pm to 6:30pm, stops customers accessing their business. There are 1 hour limited waiting parking bays in Winter Road, but these do not provide enough time for people to visit certain businesses like hair and beauty, restaurants, etc. So we put forward two proposals in TRO 30. A, to increase the 1 hour limited wait in Winter Road, north of Bramshot Road, to 3 hours, so changing the Winter Road bays from 1 hour to 3 hour in the area around Bramshot Road. And B, to include 3 hour limited waiting within the adjacent residence parking bays in Bramshot Road. And it was that second proposal that drew an objection. The first proposal has been implemented because it didn't receive any objections and provides up to 3 hours parking for the businesses there. So we are recommending not to proceed with the 3 hour limited waiting in Bramshot Road. So there's no support for it. The second item in this report concerns a proposal to introduce residence parking in remaining part of Marine Court. This came about because two residents raised the question about why bays in the eastern section of Marine Court were not included in the MG parking zone. A proposal to do so was advertised, and we've had objections from 11 residents saying that saying various things like they had no problems parking, that parking in Marine Court should be reserved for those in Marine Court, and also saying that the area was private and not public highway. All the City Council's information suggests that the area is highway. However, as there are multiple objections to having an RPZ in that area, it's recommended that the change does not proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. What about the third one? Oh, that's already received.
Oh, sorry, the third recommendation is that it's noted that the remaining parts of TRO 30 have been brought into operation.
Lovely, thank you. Have there been any written deputations, Anna? Right, okay, thank you. Over to you then, Councillor Bosher. Any comments or questions?
Thanks, Councillor Stagg. I don't have anything specific about this. This comes across as being a local tweak to a residence parking zone, and as it's an area that doesn't fall within any ward that I represent, it's probably down to the residents. All I would say is, with regards to Marine Court and whether it's private or public highway, are we 110% certain that it is public highway?
Yes, as I say in the report in section 6.3, all the information the Council has says the road was adopted by Portsmouth City Council in 1984 and is maintained at public expense. CORAS, the Council's contractor, confirmed that the whole of Marine Court is listed in their asset register and is maintained under the PFI contract. This includes the carriageway, footway, verge, surface water drainage, lighting, as per and set out in a 1984 adoption plan.
Fine. Just wanted, I'm probably asking a question I already knew the answer to. I guess my follow-up to that is the fact that they don't have a parking problem there at this moment in time. They may well start to get a parking problem over time when people start to use that. If they come back to the council to say, actually, we want to be included in that RPZ, so it will be a review effectively, would they get prioritised, or would they join the list waiting for that review?
Kevin.
I think that's a question to decide when it comes up, if it comes up. I can possibly
My
say.
feeling would be that it goes to joins the list and goes on with everything
That's sort of
else.
where I'm coming from. I mean, Kevin, you're lost. You ought to be an elected member with an answer like that. You really should. But I guess I'm following the same line that I've maintained all the way through, is the fact that we shouldn't be bumping people into the list at the expense of that list and that waiting list that already exists. And I guess I'm probably not going to win any favours in Marine Court, but they join that list, as you've indicated, Lynn, rather than suddenly become prioritised because they've had the opportunity, they've been consulted and they've rejected it, and they can't keep coming back, it would apply to any residence parking zone on the waiting list as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree. And we've also got a list, a table, of points for various things. For example, how many people ask for it. It depends, you get 1 point, 2 points or 3 points. If you're close to historical or places of interest or shopping centres, you get more points for that, and that is the weighting for it. So, Kevin.
So yeah, if I could just clarify, I mean the reason we did that Marine Court in these amendments was when it was originally looked at, there was a thought that it might not be public. So that was why it was left out of the original MG proposal. But then when we looked at the records, it became clear it was. So had we known that from the beginning, it would have been included in the original MG proposal. So that's why it's come here, not because it's jumping ahead of the list. Thank you.
Councillor Heaney. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a problem with this. I'm quite happy to have the local residents making their decisions. It's not an area I represent either, but I've read the report and it seems fairly logical. I suspect the residents of Marine Court are probably quite relieved that it's actually maintained by the council and not under their maintenance, because otherwise, if it was not adopted, they'd presumably be responsible for maintaining it. So I suspect they'll breathe a sigh of relief if they find that out. So, yeah, I think that the proposals as set out in the recommendations are fine, so I'm more than happy to see them supported.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, I'm very happy to support and accept all 3 recommendations. We now go on to item number 5, which is Capability Fund. Now, is this Pam or Michelle or both? Or Wayne?
It's me,
money
Councillor
involved,
Stagg.
isn't there?
Thank you. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you. So this is an information-only report currently, and it's to bring to the purpose is to bring to the attention of members the initiatives that have been bid for through the Department for Transport's Capability Fund. In March of this year, the Department for Transport notified local authorities of revenue funding allocations for the year 21-22 in a new one-year fund called the Local Authority Capability Fund. It replaces the previous Access Fund, which is how we bid for and gained both capital and revenue funding previously. And it supports the commitment made in Gear Change, which was the Prime Minister's cycling and walking plan that was published in July 2020. The purpose of that being to increase the capability of local authorities to plan good active travel infrastructure, including undertaking evidence-based planning and building skills within their own authorities. The amount of money that was calculated to be bid for was done via a central government algorithm and took into account population, index of multiple deprivation and the propensity for walking and cycling. The total amount of funding that Portsmouth City Council could bid for was £329,608 as a one-off revenue payment, and we submitted a bid for that total amount. Obviously contained within the report is further detail. I will run through each of the different interventions. So the components of the bid were divided up into behavioural change, so encouraging and promoting active travel, access to education and employability, so ensuring that people are able to get to the key points that they would like to get through to in the city, and finally to scheme planning and design in order, as they've previously stated, to have schemes that are ready to go forward for future capital fund bids and to build that skill set within a local authority. So within the Portsmouth City Council bid, we bid for the following. Cycle maintenance sessions, we have those already, Bike Doctor, and this is to continue that work. Workplace travel planning, school travel planning, a school travel challenge, which is locally known as our Stomper, Walk to School initiative, led cycle rides to encourage families to use cycling as a leisure activity and to integrate cycling into everyday life, a council staff cycle loan scheme, to try to work towards reducing the amount of hire cars that staff use in order to make site visits. Additional cycle security measures, so that would feed into our ongoing trial of bike hangers. Community active travel events. Previously we've held events such as the Glow Ride, and we would hold future events in a similar vein. And then it goes on to the scheme planning and design. Obviously we have a LCWIP, Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, that has previously gone through public consultation and will in the future go forward for approval and adoption, and it's about planning and designing for those schemes within that document. I was on a meeting with the Department for Transport this afternoon because we thought that we would have received the notification by now. The current information from the Department for Transport is it's likely that that announcement will be given just prior to summer recess. So it won't now be until next month before they go on summer recess from Parliament. So unfortunately I can't give you an update of how successful we've been, but we do now have a timescale from central government as to when we might find that out.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Heaney, have you got any comments, questions?
I just had a couple of questions actually on two of the items. I wonder if I could just ask those. There's the one on workplace travel planning, and it talks about a web-based platform or engagement officers to evidence, track, plan and change organisations' community missions through members of the platform. I wasn't quite sure whether why it's an either or. I mean, the web thing seems to be something that's going to be relatively permanent, but then what are the engagement officers going to do? I wasn't quite sure why it's an either or. Could that be explained? Because if the engagement officers are employed, it looks like they'll only be employed for a short period, then they'll disappear because it's one-off funding, presumably.
It was to give flexibility within what the funding could be used for. There are suppliers out there that have approached the council with different types of workplace engagement apps and websites, platforms, and then within that wording it could then be decided whether or not we wanted to also use some of that funding for resources to promote that in person, or whether we would simply have the app and then engage with businesses and direct them via the website, via the mobile phone app. So it's there because we haven't yet made a decision about which would be the best way to deliver that type of initiative.
Okay.
And presumably
The second question.
it could be either and or. It doesn't have to be one or the other, does it?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Once the funding announcement is made, then further discussion will obviously take place about how we use the funding in its final form, dependent on how much we receive. And so there is a degree of flexibility within a number of those options.
Thank you.
And the second question was relating to the last item on page 3, which is data evidence collection. It talks about collating existing data into one platform, central database, and then also collecting new data. I've had discussions with members of the Cycle Forum, and one of the things they're concerned about is they don't think the council has enough proper collection of cycle data to properly inform that. Are you planning to increase the amount of collection of cycle data, maybe in conjunction with the forum, to see what they think would be useful?
Yes, that was the intention. So probably through electronic counters of some form. Again, there's flexibility within that option. But yes, obviously the point stressed within the Capability Fund bid was that part of this was to be used in order to collect a good evidence base, where some local authorities across the country maybe don't have that data, in order to be able to bid for future funding. So that's exactly what we've used that funding for.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I mean, I'm mindful of the fact that it's a noting report, and as Michelle's already indicated, we don't know whether we've been successful yet, but it's good to have sight of what we are planning to do in advance, but I guess until we know what we've got, we don't really know what we're going to do with this particular wish list. I note the comments that Councillor Heaney said. I guess from my perspective, a lot of it is good stuff that we've been doing, like Stomper and whatever. It's been going for a number of years now, pretty successfully, and things like the cycle stuff, the glow rides and other bits and pieces, and it's good that we can find the funding to actually continue that. I guess where I'm coming from, it's more, let's see if we get the money so that we know exactly where we stand. And I'm probably more going to be interested in my respect, because the officers are doing good jobs in a lot of other areas, as to how this is going to impact on LC WIP and the actual infrastructure that we've got. Because I'm very mindful we can have a lot of good stuff, a lot of web-based stuff, a lot of initiatives, but sometimes if we don't have the necessary infrastructure to actually support those, we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. So, great report, good to see it. I sort of want to wait until we actually see whether we've been successful and how this is actually going to feed into the LC WIP, which I'm sure we will see a more detailed report come back as and when we know whether we're successful, part successful or not.
Thank you. I mean, as I see it, this is sort of supporting the measures in the LC WIP. It's providing a substructure, if you like, infrastructure to support the LC WIP. I may be reading it wrongly, but it's what occurs to me. And it's part of a network right across the city, not just for active travel, but a transport network, so that it's filling all the gaps, because there's lots of gaps at the moment. So, and it's enabling people to do things. And I think the important bit, and this is something we've talked about quite a bit in transport, is spending some time and money on coming up with plans, which I think Martin Lavis calls shovel ready. So that if you're ready, if you've got something planned, you can then apply for funding. It may not be this funding, it may be something else, but that there are plans there and designs ready to sort of take forward.
I totally agree with you, Lynn. I mean, I will give you one example. Probably like yourself and Graham, Martin Lavis has given me a detailed presentation on the park and ride and the plans behind that. And yes, it's an outline planning application, and it looks pretty fabulous from where I sit, but I'm not part of that decision-making process when it goes to planning. But I think probably a lot of my questions that I had were not so much on the application, but when you build in things like cycle hire, e-scooters and stuff like that into the plan, my questions more come about the connectivity for that sort of thing to the park and ride. So it falls within that infrastructure. Simplistically, there's no point in putting bikes and scooters there if the connectivity to the city centre and to Gun Wharf isn't there, or is extremely difficult for those particular users that want to use that mode of transport to get around. So that's sort of where I'm coming from an infrastructure point of view, and there can be a variety of other conversations around things like the Eastern Road and all the other bits and pieces, but that's the here and now, and that's the sort of stuff that I'm really interested in. How easy and how safe is it to use a bike or a scooter to get from A to B where I want to get to around the city?
I couldn't agree more. Any other comments? So I'm pleased to note it, and I agree with everything that's going on in there, plus more, because obviously there are other things going on besides this, but this is filling in one big gap, I think, and supporting a lot of the changes we want to see in the city. So thank you all very much. I think we've come to the end. Nothing else, Anna? Good? Okay. Thank you. Yes, you can turn it off.